Alright, so we're going to be talking about the ending of Chapter 119 and what could be happening afterwards, likely in Chapter 120 or whatever is going to go along with this storyline. Let me also mention that this is all still new to the manga. None of this has happened in the webcomic, so it's entirely up for speculation, which is why I love making these topical videos, because we're having like this sweet spot in the series where we can actually speculate about stuff that we don't know what's going to happen yet. So of course I'm referring to Genos showing up to save Sekigahara from G5 and then confronting Drive Knight. So there's actually a lot more going on here than what it seems to be. Like, we've got three storylines under the surface all converging here, and I'm going to be going over all of them, and then we're going to kind of come up with an explanation of what could happen, most likely. So I'm sure you know my stance on Drive Knight by now, and that is that I feel there's been a huge revelation in Chapter 119, which is essentially revealing that he is the leader of the organization, or at least one of the big shots at the minimum, and therefore he is one of the biggest villains in the series, and that's because his ultimate goal is taking over the Hero Association and essentially taking over the world after that, and he's trying to pin all of this on Metal Knight. So G5 shows up conveniently because he is one of Drive Knight's underlings, in my opinion, and he shoots off Sekigahara's hand before he can call the Hero Association and let them know that they're vulnerable. And then G5 tries to kill Sekigahara, and that's because Drive Knight has essentially no more use for Sekigahara at this point. He got all of the information from him that he needed. He asked him about Blast. He found out that Blast may or may not show up. He's kind of retired, and that even if they were trying to contact him, only a few people could do it. So now that he's getting Sekigahara out of the picture, Drive Knight is essentially going full blast on his plan here, and probably is going to try to raid the Hero Association. But at this moment, Genos shows up, and Jet Drive Arrow one-stomps G5 out of existence. So this is pretty disadvantageous for Drive Knight, because first of all, he needs Sekigahara out of the picture because he doesn't want him to contact the Hero Association, and he just needs less people being suspicious of him. But also, Genos showing up is just another obstacle for him to overcome, and is essentially stopping him from going through with his plan of sending out his raid or whatever he's going to do to take over the Hero Association. And I think the last panel of the chapter pretty much confirms that, when Drive Knight sees Genos and he's like, Genos, and there's like an ellipses after it because, you know, he doesn't want to see Genos. He's like ruining everything by showing up. And also, if what Drive Knight said is true, he probably can't take Genos right now because allegedly his energy is completely depleted from taking out Neon. So I don't think that's entirely true. I think he kind of exaggerated it, you know, so G5 could take out Sekigahara, and he just had a good excuse as to why he wasn't going to defend him. But I don't think maybe it's completely drained. I'm sure he can defend himself and fight back, but probably not enough to take out Genos, who has certainly showed how powerful he is because he, like I said, stopped a mud hole in G5. And if it is true that Drive Knight is the leader of the organization, he likely knows how powerful G5 is, and anyone that is capable of doing that to him is pretty damn formidable. So is this the end for Drive Knight? Is his story over? Well, definitely not. I mean, he's far from over. He actually has a lot of things working for him in this situation. So obviously he's not going to be able to go through with his master plan raid, but he will be able to go back to the drawing board and probably go through with that later. So let me explain why. So first of all, Genos is not even supposed to be here. He was not originally included in the S-Class strike team. He wasn't even privy to any of the information. And that's because Child Emperor was suspicious of him. So let's go back to Chapter 89. So Child Emperor says to Sekigahara, back at the Hero Association, I did a little research of my own on Demon Cyborg Genos. He's living in the ghost town of Z City. We know that because he lives with Saitama. Then he also says, the Monster Association hideout is somewhere inside of the ghost town as well, right? The town that Genos was born in was randomly wiped off the map. Don't you think this is fishy? If there is a traitor among us, our timing and routes could entirely be leaked. Genos is new. He hasn't earned our trust yet. So why is Child Emperor suspicious of Genos in the first place, regardless of what he said? Well, that's because in Chapter 85, Metal Knight told him that there are other evils out there besides the Monster Association, and that he needs to be careful and not to trust anyone by his side. I go more in depth in this in my Drive Knight versus Metal Knight video, but that line was actually Metal Knight talking about Drive Knight, but because it was so ambiguous, Child Emperor didn't exactly understand at the time, and he took this to be suspicious of Genos. If you're kind of lining up things, it kind of does make sense to be suspicious of him. So then he says to Second Guard that he wants Genos to be excluded from the operation, including all of the information regarding it. So that's how we got to Genos originally being at Saitama's apartment, not privy to any of the stuff. So earlier in Chapter 119, Second Guard says that there are too many inexplicable things surrounding Drive Knight's actions. Child Emperor also worries about the possible existence of a mole. So besides Drive Knight, the other mole in Second Guard's mind is Genos. So now Genos showing up is really going to have Second Guard conflicted. So first of all, he obviously saved Second Guard, so that's getting him in his good graces, kind of, but he's definitely still going to be suspicious of him because he trusts Child Emperor's word really above anyone else's. But also, we can't forget about Drive Knight's original interaction with Genos, and that was him telling him that Metal Knight was his enemy. And as we know in this chapter, Drive Knight pinned all of the world domination and being a traitor and all of the evil stuff on Metal Knight to Second Guard. So Drive Knight can just team up with Second Guard on Genos here and further pin everything on Metal Knight. He can be like, hey Genos, remember when I told you Metal Knight's your enemy? Well, I told Second Guard too. He's like this huge scumbag, so let's all hate him together, right? I'm cool. You guys can just trust me. But I'm going to get out of here. You could stay here and do whatever else you need. So that's what I'm thinking that Drive Knight is going to do to, squirm his way out of this situation. He's going to be like, yeah, Drive Knight's a piece of crap, so let me take all of these A-class support team and B-class guys, and I'll take Second Guard too, and I'll take Waganma and Fat Man because they're, still on the run. It's really up in the air what's going on with them, but I'm sure they're going to come back into the picture soon. And you stay here and you go help everybody out in the strike team against the Monster Association because they definitely need all the help they could get. And then that's going to fix the story here, the timelines, and this is going to allow everything to match back up with how it is in the webcomic. Because, Drive Knight, like I said, is not a part of this whole story, and he needs to get out of here. And Genos would definitely buy this because he's already suspicious of Bufoy because of what Drive Knight said, and he already has beef with him, and we saw how they interact. So that's what most likely will happen, at least in my opinion. But of course, there is another possibility. And that's Genos just somehow knows that Drive Knight is full of crap and he doesn't trust him. Or he somehow puts 2 and 2 together and can figure out that Drive Knight is similar to G5 in some way. Or Second Guard says, Genos, look, I don't trust Drive Knight. Help me take him out or something like that. And then it just inevitably ends with Genos fighting Drive Knight. And this could be the big win that Genos is going to get because he needs something. Something that's not going to conflict with the already established storyline of the webcomic, and since Drive Knight is not a part of it, it's possible that he just takes out Drive Knight. And then that's the end of Drive Knight, and then the organization goes about in a different direction without Drive Knight by their side. Now, could Genos take out Drive Knight if they were to fight? Well, if what Drive Knight said is true about his energy being depleted, then yeah, he should probably have no problem. But if Drive Knight still does have some serious power left, and he can still do all the transformations and go into his gold form, then it's not looking good for Genos, because we saw how he did against Nian. Now, granted, he said that he collected data beforehand, and that allowed him to perform as well as he did, but that still doesn't change his feats of durability, power, strength, and speed, which I don't think Daedric Genos could compete with, at least not currently. He would have to be close to High Dragon in power if he was going to be able to deal with something like that. But that's just an alternate possibility. I do think Drive Knight is going to get out of here. So there's one more possibility that I think might happen here, and that's Neon comes back to life. So I know that a lot of people out there have the theory or the hypothesis that he has 9 lives because of the whole cat mythology thing, and we've seen other monsters come back like Phoenix Man, so he could have some kind of resurrection ability like that. Now, I think that would be a little repetitive, and I don't think Neon has that ability, but I do think it's suspicious that Drive Knight still has Neon's crispy corpse with him. Whenever we see something like that, it probably means that they're not entirely dead. So I don't think Neon's going to be revived. I don't think he has some kind of reincarnation ability. I just think that Neon might not entirely be dead, and that he's likely going to regain consciousness, and then Genos takes him out for good. And that could be Genos' big win. Now, depending on how difficult that's going to be, well, it really depends on if Nyan is going to get a Zenkai boost from regaining his consciousness here. If he does, then he's going to become even more powerful, and then maybe Drive Knight and Genos have to team up to take him out for good. That's a possibility too. Or he just comes back to his, a normal consciousness, and then he doesn't get a Zenkai boost, and then Genos just finishes him off, and then that's like his other big, nice little win that he gets. He officially takes out a dragon, regardless of the circumstances. But that's what I feel could happen with the possibilities, but most likely Drive Knight's going to get out of here scot-free, and Genos is going to go help the S-Class heroes with the Monster Association. But let me know what you think is going to happen. Also, if you liked it, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.